Yes, welcome to Pan-African Perspective. I'm your host, Akabundu, and this evening we hope you're ready for some information. We're coming at you with a brief but live interview with Brother Kwame Ture. Brother Kwame, are you with us?
Yes, sir.
All right. And just want to let our listening audience know, oftentimes you stand by and wait for an opportunity to call in, but as I've talked with Kwame, this is going to be about a 15-minute interview. So if you want to get in some shouts to Brother Kwame, do it now. Don't wait to the second part of this hour. And first off, Kwame, we just want to thank you once again for joining us here on Pan-African Perspective. I really appreciate it.
We thank you for the invitation.
And we'd like to at least bring our listening audience up to speed on how your health is right now. I know in the past we've talked about your battle with prostate cancer, and how are you doing now?
Well, the cancer which the FBI gave me is a very serious one, so it's up and down. But it's very serious cancer, and it's metastasized. It's spread to the bones, so it's extremely painful.
Mm-hmm. Well, that makes us even more appreciative of your taking the time out now to speak with us. And why don't we go ahead and get a perspective from you on the current direction of the African Revolution. I know oftentimes people use the term the African Revolution loosely, and anytime we're standing up against the system, but give us some insights right now in terms of how the revolution is moving.
I think it's moving straight ahead on two levels. Number one, the rising consciousness of the people, and number two, the weakening power of the enemy. For example, many brothers and sisters in the United States say to me, "Oh, since the 60s, I ain't seen we did nothing." I say, well, that may be true, but the enemy is weaker. And there's no question that he's weaker, and there's more division. The right wing, which was always under the arm of the FBI, the CIA, and the U.S. government, are now attacking them with arms. So that certainly shows divisions there. The people in America who used to believe their presidents were gods now know their presidents lie. They know their policemen sell drugs. They know their judges are corrupt. So there's been an undermining in the faith that they used to have in the system. There's general moral decay in the society, so there's this weakening. At the same time, there's a heightening of consciousness, and while people couldn't see it, certainly the million and more march in Washington, D.C., and the million and more than a half of our sisters that gathered in Philadelphia last month certainly demonstrate that there is rising consciousness, even if this consciousness at this point has no political direction. This rising consciousness and weakening of the enemy can also be seen on the continent of Africa, which of course is most important for those of us who are Pan-Africanist, understanding that Africa is primary in our struggle. Osagyefo Kwame Nkrumah has a book entitled Neocolonialism, The Last Stage of Imperialism. I don't think most people understand this book, but if you look very carefully in Africa today, you can see clearly the failure of neocolonialism. Since colonialism, where imperialism brought in neo-colonial states, they've been switching back and forth from civilian to military, military to civilian, to try and see the best way to oppress the masses. And where these have properly broken down, they've tried to destabilize Africa, whether it was Liberia, whether it was Somalia, or Rwanda, Burundi. And these destabilizing effects are having a backfire themselves on imperialism, in that the people are becoming more politicized and picking up arms. And imperialism certainly doesn't want Africa to have the masses politicized and armed. So they themselves are having to do something about the destabilization, showing, of course, the impasse to which they have found themselves. So what is necessary now is the mass organization of the masses of our people. And our party, of course, the All-African People's Revolutionary Party, has been calling for this for decades and working for it for decades, and we continue to do it, and we can see that it's coming. We call always for all brothers and sisters to join any organization fighting for the people, whether it be ours, the All-African People's Revolutionary Party, the Nation of Islam, the NAACP, any organization fighting for the people. And this necessity of organization is coming because once you have people who mobilize in the millions, and after the mobilization there's nothing to be done, the next step is mass organization.
Yeah, well, that definitely gives one the better understanding of the move forward.
And one other thing I would like to underline for many people, and we can see it more clearly if nowhere else than in the March on Philadelphia with our sisters. That march, which drew over 1.5 million sisters, had no press coverage at all. So our sisters brought together over 1.5 million of them without press coverage and without what people usually call the big name leaders. So what you're seeing here is a real movement of the masses without the press.
That's both preceding and following the march. There was very little, if any, information on it.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I can see that in terms of being able to get 1.5 million plus women there. That's very positive. Just want to give out the phone number. We're at 408-924-5757, and this is KSJS 90.5 FM. We are having a brief interview with Brother Kwame Ture, and we'll be on the line for about another 10 minutes. So if you want to get an opportunity to call in, you should do it now while we are in this discussion. Just in terms of your analysis of the African Revolution, you mentioned neocolonialism a couple of times, and obviously students should have read the book. But could you give us just a capsulized definition of neocolonialism for our listening audience?
Well, neocolonialism is nothing other than after colonialism, when the foreigners, if it's now driven out of the country, the French, the Italians, the Spanish, the British, the Portuguese, etc., they now will bring African puppets, and they replace them as heads of states, give them their flag, their national anthem, etc., etc., but they still run the affairs of the country. And this is what's been going on all over Africa. This is neocolonialism in living color. And what neocolonialism does is it heightens the conscience of the people, because in order for neocolonialism to work, it has to work with the scum of our race. That is to say, Africans who are totally out of their culture, who seek luxury in the midst of mass suffering, at the expense of mass suffering, are the only ones who can be neocolonial puppets and rulers. They care nothing about the people, only about themselves, lining their pockets with money, etc., etc., etc. And so therefore, what happens in Africa, especially, is that the people begin to call for nothing other than honest leadership. They don't care if she's stupid. They just want her honest. And in this cry for honest leadership, revolution walks in the door, because only revolutionaries present honest leadership.
Mm-hmm. Again, you're listening to Pan-African Perspective. You can call us at 408-924-KSJS, and we are interviewing Dr. Kwame Ture. And also, we will have another taped presentation in the future of an interview held earlier with Dr. Ture. So you can call in now. A couple of things that in the last few minutes that we have here I want to touch base on. And I know you're fully aware of the CIA's role in the recent crack cocaine. In fact, I recall you and the AAPRP stating that long before the article came in the Mercury News. But your thoughts on the CIA's role in the confusion that's continually raised in the African community?
Well, that's their job. The job of the CIA is to destabilize countries. And now they've seen the rising conscience of the African community inside of America, and the attempt is to destabilize also. And it's the major one form they have at their fingertips of destabilization is, of course, drugs and violence to destabilize the community. Mm-hmm. And so since they know nothing new, they have just brought the same thing inside the country.
Right, drugs.
But as we said, this was a long time ago. Even in the early 70s, the African People's Socialist Party had the slogan, biggest pusherman in the USA, FBI and CIA.
Oh, that's a good one for African Liberation Day there. Mm-hmm. Have to remember that one. I know you don't speak out against other organizations, and I don't want to put you in a position, but in just analyzing the situation with the recent call for a boycott by, I think Dick Gregory made the call of the upcoming holiday seasons, and some attempt to expose further the CIA and the call for the government to give up more information. How do you see that particular strategy?
Well, anyway, you know, it is the one that works. Anything that works in any attempt by people is a good attempt as far as we're concerned. And Gregory certainly has sterling history in this struggle against the CIA on different levels. And his attempts go back. I remember Dick Gregory when I was a young man in Greenwood, Mississippi in the early 1960s, when he used to come down there and march with us and get bitten by dogs. Mm-hmm. So I know of his commitment, and I've seen him transform himself tremendously. I mean, I remember when I was a young man at college in 1961, going to see Dick Gregory at the Howard Theater in Washington, D.C., and he was a chain smoker. He would light up one cigarette, and he would never use another match. Before the cigarette went out, he would light another one till the end of his show. And today he doesn't even smoke. I mean, this is serious transformation.
Yeah. So what do you think it would take for a strategy such as that to, or what strategies are you aware of to put more pressure on the FBI and the CIA?
Well, our party has been calling for a smash the FBI and CIA coalition since the 1970s. Of course, at that time, the FBI had highly infiltrated most of the organizations, progressive organizations, trying to destroy them so that there was very little response from them. But our party kept on doing the work even by itself, you know. Mm-hmm. And now more and more people are seeing the necessity for it. And Gregory certainly will play a crucial role here, as he's been a leading force in it to help coordinate this activity. I've been speaking to him over the years, but earlier, about 3 months ago, I caught him in Bermuda in the Caribbean, and he decided that he would finally come and help head it to coordinate it. Arthur Kanoy, the lawyer who was with Kunstler, has also agreed, and we're looking at some other people to coordinate it properly.
That's good. Just one last question, and then we'll let you go. And this is Pan-African Perspective, and we're interviewing Dr. Kwame Ture on the question of the U.S. embargo of several countries, Cuba, Iraq, Libya. Is there any similarities between these countries? And of your knowledge, I know you travel the world and have been to at least 2 of these countries recently, the impact that it's having on the population in those countries. Well,
the major similarities is that none of them bow down to American imperialism, and their leaderships cannot be corrupted by American imperialism. These are the 3 major reasons. Of course, we would think that Clinton would do far better feeding the homeless in America rather than starving babies in Iraq, in Libya, and in Cuba. But this is the choice of American imperialism, and he is their political voice. But we see, of course, no conscious person can see the need. If, in case you say that Gaddafi is your enemy, or that you say that Castro is your enemy, or that Saddam Hussein is your enemy, why must innocent children in these countries suffer if these people are your enemies? I mean, but this is American fascist mentality. They go into Panama, kill over 2,000 people in the African community in Panama to arrest one man, Noriega, and bring him to jail in Florida. And they consider this to be, you know, perfect, nothing wrong with it. So this is their mentality. It's a Ku Klux Klan mentality. It's a racist mentality. It's a get the Indians mentality. It's a do slavery mentality. And it's the same values of genocide and slavery that run rampant in America. Until there's revolution in America, these values will dominate. But there will be revolution in America, of course.
Well, Kwame, we want to thank you very much for taking this time out to speak with us. And as I mentioned earlier on, we do have a longer taped interview that we'll play in future programs here at Pan-African Perspective. And we wish you well in your health endeavors. And if we don't get a chance to talk to you before you leave the country again, you take care and stay strong.
All right, we want to thank you. We want to thank you for your sacrifice for your people. Of course, had the privilege and the inspiration of knowing you over the years, know you to be a hard worker for the people. We want to thank you for bringing information to the people. And yes, hopefully within 48 hours I'll be home in Africa. And we certainly continue our work there, and we'll be inspired knowing that you are on this side also working.
All right. We appreciate that.
Thank you.
Forward.
Forward.
Africanism and what you had just pointed out about imperialism's failure in Africa, what can we look for on the positive end in terms of the gains? And I guess implied in what you're saying is some scholars have said that there's a potential for recolonization or something in Africa. But on the positive tip, what is it that we can look for in terms of Africa's unity and the struggle forward?
Okay, those scholars who claim real recolonization are scholars and not, of course, fighters. Because we're not worried about recolonization. The enemy before us now is neocolonialism. And if you destroy neocolonialism, there's no way in. Europe has no intentions of recolonizing Africa. That one is past. It cannot come back. But they do intend to continue neocolonialism. Therefore, if we keep talking about fighting recolonization while neocolonialism is in front of us, we miss the enemy. The enemy at this time directly is neocolonialism. According to these scholars, Africa risks being recolonized. That means you're talking about a potential enemy. You have a real enemy before you, and you have a potential enemy, and they're asking you to fight the potential enemy and leave the real enemy alone. So this is a trick by scholars who know nothing about Africa but want to run Africa. And of course, most of them are living outside of Africa. As we say in Africa, you cannot kill a snake with a long stick. So if you want to fight Africa, you've got to be inside Africa. And it is clear that this is just rubbish. Neocolonialism is our major enemy, and as we've just explained, neocolonialism is certainly failing in every aspect on the African continent. And so the only thing left for Africa is to emerge as a unified socialist continent. And if you look at all the youth organizations throughout the length and breadth of Africa, all the youth talk about is Pan-Africanism, a unified Africa.
I know within that context that I had heard you were recently in Tanzania, South Africa, for Steve Biko Day. How did that go? And I heard you were very well received.
Well, it was excellent. You know, in Africa, families marry. And so even if you get divorced, your families don't get divorced. Now, I know that because I've been married twice, once to Miriam Makeba from Zambia, South Africa, and also to a sister born in Guinea. And though I've been divorced from both of them, I've never been divorced from the family. So I know that all the brothers and sisters in Zambia, South Africa are my brother-in-laws and sister-in-laws. And this was my first time to go and visit them. And of course, we've struggled very, 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 very rigorously and uncompromisingly for the liberation of Zambia, for the destruction of the settler, racist settler regime. So number one, going home to us here was representing at least an advancement in the struggle. And of course, over the years, being married to Miriam Makeba, working with all the liberation movements out of there, the ANC, ZAPO, the PAC, gave us large field of contacts. So, and of course, good understanding of the political situation there. So we were actually at home.
That's good. I would hope that maybe there are some proceedings or some recordings or something that potentially we could get down the road. I know of a couple of people there that I'll contact if you know of any particular events that took place.
Well, the All African People's Revolutionary Party have them because we have organizers in Zambia, and they were the ones who did all the work. So they have all of the recorded events there.
Just a couple of more questions, and first off, this question, especially with the release recently of Brother Geronimo Pratt, withijaga, and the question of reparations, and both in the United States as well as in Africa. Is that something that your party looks at, or what is your position and thoughts on reparations?
Well, our party thinks that if one speaks of reparations, especially in the case of Africans and in the diaspora, one also has to speak of repatriation. So anytime you speak of reparations while isolating repatriation, we're not sure you have a proper understanding of what you're saying, except that we want to stay in America with color TV and Coca-Cola, and get some more. The question of reparations is where is the money going to be used? How is it going to be used? The questions which people have not even developed and looked at. Are we going to get this money individually so that each of us can go and fry our hair with it, or buy cosmetics, or even buy drugs? Or is this money going to be collective? And if it's collective, where's the money going to be spent? Is it going to be spent in Africa? Is it going to be spent in the Caribbean, in South America, in Central America, in North America, where slavery was rampant? So all of these questions are questions that have to be seriously answered. And we think at this point the reparation movement is more a movement of feeling and sentiment than one of serious reasoning and understanding of what is to be done with it, what is the purpose of it, what is the scientific basis of it, and of course what is the morality of it.
And within the context of what Withijaga talks about, he also makes reference to a national plebiscite. I guess in that effort there was some thoughts given to how to coordinate and utilize the resources, but would you place that also in pretty much the same context?
The same context, because before you have a plebiscite, people don't understand that before you have a plebiscite, you must have political education. As a matter of fact, if you have a plebiscite today inside the United States of America among Africans and their role in Africa, Africa will lose terribly. That's because of a question of no political education. In America, Africans have gotten negative political education about Africa throughout their life. You started off the program by saying that all the scenes we see are those of conflicts in Africa.
Mm-hmm.
So most Africans in America, because of racist political education, have a very negative attitude towards Africa. So before you have a plebiscite, you have to at least try and begin to counteract this with giving some truthful information about Africa. And so while we understand a plebiscite, we think more important than the plebiscite is the political education that precedes it to ensure victory for the forces of justice. Because the unjust forces at this time, unfortunately, have the minds and the thinking of the people, the majority of our people. So, again, this is the task. We're not in any way knocking reparations now. We've not even taken a position so far. We just said that there is a lot of prerequisite work that has to be done, and we're not seeing these efforts being undertaken.
Have you had a chance to speak with or meet with Withijaga?
Unfortunately, since he's been out of prison, we keep missing each other. I spoke to him some years ago before he came out of prison, but of course our party's in full contact with him, and our party cadre work with him everywhere. But unfortunately, I haven't gotten a chance to meet him. And when he came to New York this year, some months earlier, the day he came, the day before, I was in the States just briefly, but I had to be in Africa, and there was no way for me to break the date. I had to go to Libya, and so unfortunately I just had to go. I couldn't be here to see the brother.
Check that out. Just a couple more questions and I'll let you go. One in particular in relationship to the recent Million Women's March that took place in Philadelphia. And, I know in the past years as well, there's been the anniversaries of the Million Man March celebrated in World Days of Atonement. Your thoughts on the Million Women's March?
Well, of course, a lot of thoughts. We're very happy, of course, to see the masses of our people mobilizing. Once again, Africans come to be in the front, even quantitatively speaking, in their protest movements, because nobody yet has reached the millions. Of course, we, took it a step higher with Dr. Martin Luther King when he brought close to 300,000 people. That was the largest march they had in D.C. Since then, they tried to do it. Now we've come back with 1 million. But for us in the All-African People's Revolutionary Party, the most significant aspect of the Women's March in Philadelphia was that it was done without the press. It was done without the press. It was done without the press. And they should be properly underlined, because many brothers and sisters in this country think they can't do anything for the people unless they've got the press. And our party has always known, People's Revolutionary Party, the most significant aspect of the Women's March in Philadelphia was that it was done without the press. It was done without the press. It was done without the press. And this should be properly underlined because many brothers and sisters in this country think they can't do anything for the people unless they've got the press. And our party has always known that the press does not make revolution. It is correct, the revolution will not be televised. The press doesn't make it. The press is the capitalist press, and the capitalist press is against progress. Therefore, no way will it give you proper publicity. So, and many people think, especially brothers and sisters who want to do some good for the people, think that unless they have publicity, they can't do anything. So here was over a million women came together without any publicity at all from the capitalist press. So we hope this will be a significant lesson, and that brothers and sisters everywhere will really learn this lesson that you don't need the press. Just go out and get the people ready.
That's good. I'm hoping they take note to that one. And my last question, so that I can move on and let you move on here. There's been so much talk about Proposition 209 and affirmative action here in this country, and your history as having fought and worked in the civil rights movement. And I guess this is a loaded question because we will know your answer to a certain extent, but I just want to get your reflections here for our listening audience that may not be as familiar with some of your history.
On
the Proposition 209, which was a rebuke of affirmative action laws here in California.
We were just speaking of reparations, all right. Irrespective of the one's moral persuasion on this question, there's no question it's legally established within the Western world. The state of Germany pays reparations to the Zionist entity in Israel, called Israel. And Israel was not a state in World War II, yet repatriations is being paid. So the question of affirmative action is certainly established here under this aspect of repatriation. We saw it in America for the Japanese. So that there is an understanding within Western legal thinking that if somehow you have been injured, that somehow something must be done to help compensate and to bring you back up to date. So not granting it to Africans is just racist to the core. We give the example, let us take just a religious group. Let us take the Jews. Let us say that today we take all the Jews in America, put them in ghettos, and cut them off from all technological and computer, etc., like slaves were cut off from reading and writing. You know, during slavery, if a slave learned to read and write, they could be killed. Once their masters know they can read or write. So we will cut the Jews off, just as a religious group, away from all technology. And then, let's say, what year are we in? 1997? Let's say 400 years from now, what would that be? 2001, 2002, 97? We bring all the Jews now back and put them right into society with 400 years of technological advancement. They've never had any of it. And just tell them, okay, come on, function like everybody else. Clearly we can see this is unjust. Clearly we can see it's unjust. So affirmative action is clearly trying to make compensation and amends for incorrect deeds and unjust actions in the past.
Well, Brother Kwame, I want to thank you very much for taking time out this morning to have this telephone interview with me, and we miss you out in the West Coast. I know a lot of new generation of students are coming through, and we continue to utilize videos from past presentations and tape recordings, and this one hopefully will be well received as also. So we want to thank you very much and wish you well in your health endeavors and the African Revolution endeavors.
We want to thank you, and of course we cannot end unless ending the way all cadre of the All African People's Revolutionary Party always ends, by inviting every brother and sister who truly love their people, not with words but with deeds, to join an organization fighting for their people.
Thank you very much.
Let's forget the state.